Okay, so this is the first time that Keys to the Shop is trying a stream of some kind, and so just curious about how this is going to go. Um, it's the Keys to the Shop office, and I'm drinking just a little bit of leftover coffee here. It's the coffee from the most recent. Um, let's see, not the most recent episode, but it's Luis Fernando of Amor Perfecto in Colombia. I'm a big fan of these like ceramic cups. They're My wife and I get tons of these. We have a big collection of these in our kitchen. Anyway, this is Colombian coffee that is roasted in Colombia and shipped to you instead of shipped raw from Colombia and then roasted in your hometown. So I'm just experimenting with this, and there's a very good chance that I'm going to delete this. But Keys to the Shop is, I think, pretty much going to be getting a little bit more out there in the world of YouTube. The Keys to the Shop has always been audio, and now I think we're trying to do video. I'm just curious about what's going on in your world. If you are here and you have anything you'd like to talk about, then I would love to chat with you. See what you're drinking coffee-wise. It'd be fun. It looks like there's not many people right now, but what do we have on the show recently? Let me just look this up real quick. We just re-aired an episode of Keys to the Shop, which was called Curbing Their Enthusiasm. That one I liked a lot. I liked that episode because we have been talking about coffee education recently on the show. We've been talking about coffee education as it relates to making coffee education accessible. And I think that a lot of the things that we have to talk about with accessible coffee education is the same. It's the same conversation we need to have about teaching people to love coffee that use the condiment bar constantly. Now, I'm not against people using the condiment bar. If you love coffee with cream in it, that's fine. I do think, though, that people often will more likely visit the condiment bar and they will get coffee flavored, etc., because not consciously, but really subconsciously, the coffee itself really doesn't taste that good. So poor coffee quality in the coffee shop has really caused an explosion of additives to coffee. I would wager that we'd have less of this additive culture, this condiment culture, if we were a little bit better at coffee earlier on in the coffee industry. In the same way, I think that we are so focused on creating educational pathways for people as consumers, a lot of times because we are responding to a lack of education in the coffee shop itself, where coffee bars have customers who are talking about coffee, they're excited about coffee. And what we do oftentimes is we essentially curb their enthusiasm. We teach them that they're not allowed to be excited about basic things in coffee. They're not allowed to be excited about various origins, or we turn our noses up at people who are not on our level as baristas. And we have this real insular culture, this bubble, if you will, it needs to be popped, really, the bubble of specialty coffee insider culture that turns its nose up at customers who, innocently enough, get excited about they get excited about the basics, and it's easy for us to sort of downplay that. It's easy for us to downplay the idea that they get excited about Oh, what's a macchiato? I don't know what that is. And we don't get too excited about their excitement. I think that's a problem. We curb their enthusiasm. We don't match it and exceed it and guide them and get excited that they're excited. And if we had been doing that the whole time, then I think we would have a different kind of um, customer professional relationship, in my opinion. So Andrew Gilmore, hey, you've been listening for a few years now. Wondered how you saw hospitality going in the post-pandemic world, and specifically things becoming more transient, like ghost kitchens, and how that may impact coffee or cafe culture, um, with obvious overheads like rent, staffing, insurance. Yeah, so hospitality in terms of how it's going to impact like post-COVID world, how it's going to impact things. There's a couple of things that I have in mind, and thank you for listening, Andrew. I appreciate it. Um, we do see that the ghost kitchen is a big thing, and also just collaborating with other brands has been, or other companies, like having a bakery slash coffee bar where there's two different business entities sharing the overhead. That's been on the rise for quite a long time. It's really accentuated in recent years, especially because or in the recent past here because of COVID, and people are risk averse. We've always been kind of risk averse, but I think way more so now. Um, that means I don't think people are going to be seeking out large retail spaces, 1,500 square feet, 2,000 square feet. I see a lot of people, and this is coming from my consulting inquiries too, when people reach out to talk about maybe opening their own place. A lot of people are just looking at smaller footprints for their businesses. That's one thing that may affect hospitality, because you're not going to have as many people sitting inside a coffee shop, not because they feel unsafe. That's obviously something that you gotta, you know, you think about, but it's because there's not much space to do so, because the proprietor, the owner, didn't want to, you know, have that much space to have to manage. And I understand that. In fact, I have a soft spot in my heart for smaller cafes. I feel like you can kind of curate the cultural or the experience of hospitality better in a smaller space rather than in a large cavernous cafe that looks really good on Instagram or whatever. But in reality, it just feels like there's dead spots, kind of like if you ever swam in a lake and there's like all of a sudden you reach this patch of cold water, then there's warm water, then there's cold water. There's like dead spaces in some of these large cafes. Customers feel that. We don't feel that because we are so focused on the bar. Customers feel that. So smaller footprints of coffee bars, mobile coffee bars are a huge thing. So many people getting started with carts, trailers, clients of mine doing the same thing. Pop-ups and catering services to dip their toe into it. And I think that risk aversion is part of the reason why they're doing that. And the to-go culture is also part of that. So how that affects hospitality, yeah, I mean, transience has always been a part of coffee culture. Even if you have a large coffee bar, you are you're still going to have a ton of traffic leaving, getting to-go coffees. And it's just more accentuated now. And that, I hope that answers the question a little bit. In also, Andrew, I think we are seeing people having a hard time hiring. And what people don't want to talk about is the reason they're having a hard time hiring is because, one, people are still being paid to stay home. Now, you can't judge necessarily the reason why or if it's legitimate. Some people have super legitimate reasons for doing that. And it's their choice to do it. Now, I think it might have a negative impact on business. Certainly, we see that now. It's hard to find people to work, but it forces owners like this. I think this is part of the free market system. Now you've got to compete for the best people or to find people to work for you. And what does that competition look like? It looks like offering better pay for the staff that you do hire, better opportunities, getting involved in getting your staff involved in more professional development. So previously, a coffee bar might have had um, 10 staff members, mostly all part-time. Um, and then now I feel like it'd be better to have less than that, 6 or 7 more full-time, higher with a higher pay, with more responsibility and more professional development. So you get more from the people that you have. You give them more responsibility, more compensation, treat them like professionals, and don't pigeonhole them into just the category of you're going to be trained to stand behind the espresso machine and look pretty and make pretty things. I think the era of that type of barista role is coming to an end by just the necessity of having to have a leaner, more productive staff. And if you can compete on prices, if you have to compete with people staying home, and by increasing the rate at which you pay them, then that's what we have to do. I think that's better for the coffee shop in general. So, what are we saying here? Yeah. Oh, in the UK, 50 covers, and we're busier than ever now. Restrictions have loosened up in the context of how I'm paying. Private mixologist, nice. Yes, you really do have to hustle to make it as a coffee professional. Um, I work for myself now with consulting and keys to the shop. That's only happened in the last year. That's 21 years. Well, it's 20 solid years of working for other coffee shops as a manager, barista, trainer, doing side gigs, all that stuff. The system's not really set up to give the average barista a career. Now, it probably will never be that way. In restaurants, it's that way as well. Like if you work as a line cook, like you could make a career of that, in a sense that you keep doing it and then you get old and you look back at how long you've done it and you be like, well, that's my career, sort of accidental career, I think. Yeah, yeah, especially especially post 30. Yeah, I'm 40. I'll be 43 in two months, and I'll tell you or not 2 months, in 2 weeks, and I'll tell you if it was taking jobs, it would have to be something that was more. You're going to attract people that with a more respectable proposition, right? So, yeah, I kind of forgot where I was going with that other line of thought, but no, careers, yeah. I was thinking about transients. Transient baristas are a big thing, and one of the things that got me thinking about our industry was just the fact that you're always going to have people that work in a coffee bar who use the coffee bar as a stepping stone to another career that's more established. And that's true for grocery stores. It's true for ice cream shops and, any, retail jobs that have a very narrow range of responsibilities. Um, and there's always going to be a part of those industries, insiders like ourselves, who say, well, wouldn't it be nice if, wouldn't it be nice if, any run-of-the-mill job in a grocery store could be considered a career, and then I wouldn't have to work past that, and I could stay here and just make a career out of assorting fruit in the grocery store. That might be true for some people, and I know that there are definitely people that have worked in grocery stores like we have in the US. I'm from New York originally. Wegmans grocery stores, I've known people that worked in produce for 30 years. Okay, but the average person who's like making sure the bananas look pretty and is guiding people to mangoes is they're not going to go and make a career out of that necessarily. They're going to find something else. And that's true for coffee as well. Try as we might to create industry career paths in barista work, there's always going to be more than half of the population of baristas that are transient. And I guess that's just the nature of the beast. But if we embrace this, look at it a little bit more positively. Look at it a little bit more like um, because of the transient nature of coffee bars, we are actually providing an amazing service to society. We are actually training the workforce of other industries for them because young 20 something barista will go on to pursue their degree, get a job in another industry, and then they will either look back on their experiences as a barista in their formative years and other jobs that they had and use that experience to either become a great employee or boss or a bad employee and boss. Everybody kind of picks up on the garbage or the treasure that they find along their way to a little bit more of a solid profession later on in life. Our job, whether they stay or not, is to not only make it really great to work in our coffee bars and to provide as many opportunities for professional development as possible and to think about it as people development and as a societal service because we know that over 75% of these people are going to be gone in 2 or so years on average, more than that probably. So who are we sending out? Are we sending them out better people for having worked at our bars and therefore providing the world and our communities a better experience when they get on the phone to somebody in a I don't know what people are doing after the company they work for, right? Um, that's been on my mind lately. We want to like keep people in coffee. That's the success. You're successful if you can keep people in coffee. And I don't know. I think if we try to keep people in coffee, sometimes we're not doing them a service. We just need to create better, experiences, better people. It sounds like a Papa John's commercial. It's weird. Papa John's. We got some more comments here. Hugo Chavez, he began specialty coffee career as a barista at 40. Hey, hey. That was 6 years ago, and the saga continues. Production and roasting in Las Vegas. Do you think a positive way to go about this would be to increase wages and decrease focus on tips? Yeah, so you could decrease focus on tips right now, right? Like you don't have to do away with tips. Tips is like I think about tips almost like this. If you see a couple fighting, they're having an argument, and you step in the middle of that, chances are they're both going to turn on you. Um, this has happened a lot. I've seen this happen a lot. Might not be a perfect analogy, but the tip system is a third-party system managed by the owners for tax purposes. And sometimes not managed by the owners. Cash tips are rarely, if ever, reported. Wink, wink. All that stuff. But when you start messing with people's tips, it's a psychological. It's piranha infested waters. It's really it's a stressful thing to do to anybody, and the customers, because they're the initiators of it. Even though it's an expected thing, even though a lot of people feel strong-armed to tip, there's so many instances where tips were taken away and customers were pissed, just really upset about it. And instead, in a strange way, if we want to decrease our focus on tips for compensation of baristas, by focusing on it as the lever to pull to not focus on it, we actually are focusing on it. It's actually like saying, I'm not going to think about this. I'm not going to think about this coffee cup. I'm not going to think about this coffee cup. And I end up thinking about it a lot. And I end up just kind of ignoring a bunch of other obvious things like just pay people more. It's not as easy as that. I always have the philosophy of saying pay people what you can, not what you can get away with. There's two different philosophies there. Um, Paying people what you can means you view them as critical an asset to your business as you possibly can. Obviously people are invaluable. You can't put value on a human being, you know. But within the business, you kind of have to. It's not an inhumane thing to do. You have to say, well, there's certain positions that just can't get paid the exact same thing because they don't bring a a particular monetary value to the business the same way that this other thing does. That's just the reality of it. Not everything has to be an issue of human worth in the business, but we can, I think, in a lot of cases, pay people more. We're just afraid to because we don't see the return on the investment because we have a fear-based mentality towards compensation. If minimum wage is, 750 or 775 or whatever, we'll say, well, we'll go 8. And it's a lot of art and not a lot of science. We're not actually doing financial projections to see, well, what can we pay people? Can we pay them $1 more? Can not only just competitively, but can we really beat out everybody else? And then, like I said before, give them more responsibility in the business, train them. Like David Castillo was talking about this in one of our latest episodes on holistic barista training. He's the head trainer for G&B and Go Get 'em Tiger, and he's talking about developing people in such a way that they basically could be managers or operations managers, et cetera, and having a big pool of talent instead of just having people trained in one narrow range of skills. So if an owner would simply say, look, generous compensation costs far less than turnover. If you just sit down and do the math and look at how many people leave the business to go work for something that pays them more, it costs you way more to lose that person and retrain them than it would if you just paid them more. It's a matter of due diligence on the part of the administration to say, we've done the math. Here's what it looks like. We can do this. It's pushing the limits of what we can do, but we believe in the value of our team that makes this coffee shop possible. And when you communicate that explicitly, that's how you have determined what you can pay people and are transparent with that, even if it's not as much as people would like to make, as long as they know that's what you can, like absolutely can pay them, they might be even more likely to stick around and you might be able to retain those people because they know if the business does better, they can trust in your heart, in your values that says, obviously, if it does better, they want to pay me more. And there's a lot of owners who just want to get away with paying as little as possible and will open 2 or 3 stores before they even think about giving $1 raise to the people who are breaking their backs in their business. So I guess that's kind of my answer to that. Increasing wages, I'm for it as long as it makes sense to the business's finances. I've seen it where people have paid a lot more for their baristas, and it's actually hurt the business. And then they have to they just can't afford to keep on operating. So you have to be financially wise with your business in order to be financially generous with it, I think. And so there's a lot of that mixed in there as well. The main role of an assistant manager, Andrew, you are saying. I would agree and say the main role as an assistant manager is to educate your successor. What would you say resilience looks like at this moment for coffee? How does that manifest? Well, I mean, resilience is such a the last time I talked about this was at Coffee Fest, and I I said resilience is like the Black Panther's suit, where it takes blows and it harnesses the energy of those blows and it gives it back out, as energy back out that to the world. So that's basically like saying, okay, resilience is all about taking opportunity and challenges or taking challenges as opportunity and then turning them into something that produces something positive. So the challenge of any coffee bar automatically is going to be profitability. That profitability challenge, if you absorb that challenge, then you give it back out as compensation for your staff. Um, you give it out as a savings account that goes into machine upkeep and repair and preventative maintenance, and also for saying yes to opportunities for expansion. Um, there was a guy that we had on our show named Andrew Carroll. The episode is How to Build a Financially Resilient Business. Highly recommend that episode. He is a wealth manager, an accountant, and it is shocking how the COVID showed how little savings people actually have in coffee, and how poorly money is managed within coffee shops. Resilience has to do first, I think, with your mentality of we're going to treat challenges as opportunities. We're going to have an others focused mindset. But in order to do that, we need to have a mindset that looks out for the business also. So you can't be altruistic to your own detriment without eventually destroying yourself, right? Managers do this all the time, where they try to work more than they're actually expected to work in order to prove some kind of, charitable, altruistic value that they have, and they end up burning out. A lot of times not because the owner made them burn out, but just because they started to take on more than they needed to because they have a certain insecurity within themselves that makes them have to do more because they can't identify where they're making a difference. So resilience, it has to do with discipline in the little things, honestly. The finances are one of them. Your mentality is being somebody who works for the benefit of other people and stays healthy as a business and as a person yourself is another thing. Bosses and managers, mid-managers and owners alike, in order to be resilient, you have to learn how to say no to things, how to say absolutely yes to the right things, how to say absolutely no to the wrong things, and not worry about the fear of missing out, right? Or else you're going to try to do everything. And I'll tell you, the least resilient companies are the ones that have dreams of rapid expansion. Their eyes are on everybody else. They're super competitive and worried about missing trends. And they are constantly working and hustling, but not really tending to the things that they currently have. A little founder, I'm referencing a lot of episodes. Founder Friday episode with Spencer's Coffee was a great Founder Friday. That's our most recent Founder Friday. And what they did at Spencer's is they spent nearly 15 years with one store, just optimizing that store, growing within that store, creating more and more opportunity for growth and opportunity for staff and development. And I mentioned this in the show. I love that because it shows that they are focused on being good stewards of what they have and not constantly sort of grass is greener, looking over there saying, well, I just wish we had, 3 or 4 more of these like really pretty coffee bars. And then we'd, reach this particular status in the minds of all the people that see our business. And that's really harmful. and we don't realize how harmful that is. We worship a particular, and we follow this particular aesthetic, of like, we want to see ourselves and look in the mirror and see ourselves and enjoy the sight of ourselves in our own coffee bars, rather than enjoying the knowledge that our coffee bars are actually working well, making money so that we can, and the people that work for us can live comfortably, have a living wage. The customers can enjoy consistent quality, and we serve a very and we serve our communities well. We would rather sort of worry about how we're seen by our peers, oftentimes, and that causes a lot of, I think it just causes root rot, honestly, is what it causes. Um, so those are some thoughts on resiliency. It's a hard topic to talk about, honestly. Um, yeah. Last here, loads of useful info. Yeah, you're welcome. Would you say that having a plan of periodization is important right now for business? Oh, 100%. I mean, people barely have plans. I mean, you ask people what their plan for the business is, they might say, well, we want to increase sales 20% year over year. That sounds nice to say. That's a little bit like saying we want to serve our community quality coffee. Well, of course you do. That's why you're starting a coffee bar. Who doesn't want to grow year over year? So setting financial goals, I think, should be a little bit more specific. I mean, I'm a big fan of the idea of like the 12-week year. It's a book, actually. Um, but quarters, like, where do you want to see your coffee bar performing quarterly? Not just financially, also, by the way. Think about return on mission. How do you create metrics for success that go beyond financial metrics? Is there a particular level of engagement you wish to have had with your community in real life? Not just like, how many Instagram followers do you have? But I mean, you could set a goal for, like, we know we're doing well on our mission, like the return on our mission is good if we get genuinely glowing reviews emailed to us directly from customers, not just put up on Yelp or whatever, um, that might be something really cool to put out there. But having more social and relational quarterly goals could be a cool thing to incorporate, because what you're doing is you're taking this 30,000-foot view of your business, and then you're kind of looking at it microscopically. You're saying, okay, well, here's how we're doing in the quarter. We're making this much more. Like, we've got this many more wholesale clients. Business is up by X percent. And then you drive down into the details and you say, and our cost of goods, for each of these things is really good as well. And you're looking at it in a granular level, and you're wheeling and dealing to get better prices on milk from your distributor, so that that big picture metric is met. Relationally and return on mission wise, you can do the same thing by saying, well, we hope to have more followers on Instagram up here. We hope to have more wholesale clients. That's up here. But then in a granular level, we have to look at things like, well, how are we doing in our phone presence when we're talking to our wholesale clients over the phone? What are we doing to really hone in on how we greet customers as they come into the shop? Or, how we email people when they have questions about our online store. Those granular things, those small things, if we can see and track our progress across those things, I think we're going to see big results and a more resilient business. We just assume that those little things happen, but if we're not looking at them, they probably are just going to get out of whack and eventually affect the big picture. And then we start to freak out and say, well, we need to change a big change because we didn't look at the little changes and kind of create urgency around managing the small stuff that contributes to the big stuff. So yeah, create regular periods of check-in and track performance in a lot of different areas as it impacts your business. That's a great idea. Um, it's funny. We've been talking for 35 minutes, and when I logged on here, I had absolutely no idea what I was going to talk about at all. I just wanted to start. I shouldn't even be drinking this coffee, honestly, because it's 12:30 my time, almost 12:30. And to let you in on a little secret, I usually just don't drink coffee after 11 a.m. And I usually do not drink more than 4 ounces or 5 ounces of coffee total throughout the day. The rest of the day is spent with sedatives, chamomile, L-theanine, amino acid, magnesium, and it's just I don't know what it is. It's just I'm a little bit more sensitive to caffeine these days. But Andrew, I appreciate your questions. Yeah, um, because you called yourself Andrew, it really kind of threw me off. But now I know who you are. Is this Andy over at B Coffee? I think you're still watching. If you're still watching. Um, 8 ounces max in the morning. Now, if I was just like a caffeine hog and I just drank a ton of caffeine like I did back in the day, I could still only drink like 4 ounces of a natural. I can't really drink that much of a natural coffee. I know that it's kind of cool to hate on naturals right now. I mean, depending on who you're talking to, I just don't like something that's sweet and hot like that. Like not too sweet. And I mean like a fruity kind of thing. Like hot strawberries, unless it's in a pie, sounds terrible to me. Like if somebody said, "Hey, you want a strawberry?" Yeah, sure. Oh, you want me to heat it up for you? No, 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 no. I'll just eat that strawberry thing. There's something about fruit that feels like it should be either cold or in a pie, but in a coffee, it just is a hard sell for me. It's interesting. Um, yeah, have a good day, Hugo. Those emojis. Hope you have a good one. So, yeah, naturals. Clean naturals are nice. I'm a washed coffee fan, though. I really am. But anyway, cool. Live stream on YouTube. I had to download Chrome to do this, so I hope it's worth it. It's the only thing I'm going to be using Chrome for. So we'll keep this up on the YouTube channel, and you can track the progress of YouTube, Keys to the Shop YouTube. I think my backdrop is fine. I got this fancy webcam I bought, and I'm going to have to get it on something different because my computer is kind of shaky. But my goal is to do more interactive things on YouTube and maybe live chats, and even do potentially some bonus and extra content, like talking a little bit more about the episodes that we put out. Shift breaks, for example. We could talk 35 minutes, 15 minutes about the shift break content, and we've done a lot here in the live chat. So thank you both to Andy and Hugo. Appreciate you both being the very first in the live chat Keys to the Shop YouTube channel. And yeah, I will see you all later. And I can be really cheesy here. I hope that this live stream has given you keys to the shop.